Aitah for telling my boyfriend he doesn't get a say in this part of my pregnancy. Aitah for telling my boyfriend he doesn't get a say in this part of my pregnancy. Me, 23F, and my boyfriend, 23M, have been together for about a year now, and I'm 5 months along in my pregnancy. I found out I was pregnant a little after Thanksgiving Nov 2023. I was ecstatic as I have PCOS and wasn't sure I'd even be able to conceive, even though this wasn't planned. When I broke the news to my boyfriend, his reaction was a little less than stellar, and he essentially told me he wasn't ready to be a father. The next month or two, he hasn't been involved in my pregnancy, but I'm fortunate to have supportive parents and family. I told him from the beginning the door is always open, as I wouldn't deny my baby the chance to know their dad. Around mid-January, he told me he wants to be involved in the baby's life and has been going to appointments with me and my mom, going over names with me, and all of those things. This is where things get complicated. I've been thinking about my birth plan, doing a lot of researching and talking with my doctor, and I've narrowed it down to 2 options, which are natural with an epidural or a water birth. A few weeks ago, I talked to him about me planning to either have an epidural or go for a water birth to him, and he disagreed and was adamant that I do it naturally. I brushed this off, but since then he's been pushing nonstop that I do a natural birth, saying that I'll regret it and that I don't need all of those drugs. It's been frustrating, but part of me appreciated that he wants to be involved and was showing concern for the baby until yesterday. He was over at my place and the topic came up once again. He asked if I had a change of heart and agreed with him yet, and I said no, and I was still debating on epidural or water birth. My last straw was when he said it's not what's best for the baby. I was livid and said, how would you know what's best for them? You didn't even want them, and yelled at him to get out. He's been blowing up my phone with angry texts since, and so have his parents. My parents, on the other hand, are on my side. I feel bad because of what I said. I realize this is a big change for both of us, and it's not just my baby, but I don't know what to think. I feel maybe I was out of line or that I'm being selfish. Should I reconsider? Edit. Thank you everyone for the feedback and advice as well. I've been reading through them when I can. I'll answer some questions soon to shed light on the situation. I've seen some comments accusing me of disappearing, and I just want to say I have real-life obligations, and this post has only been up for 1 hour. I can't sit on Reddit responding to all 200 comments. I certainly wasn't expecting this many responses. First comment, oh, 100%. The way I see it, as long as baby and mom are healthy, everyone heals properly, and then everything went correctly. She also believes being a mother is the best and only thing a good woman is used for. Kinda ironic, considering she has 5 children, and the only one who speaks to her is the one who still lives with her. We stopped talking after she tried to tell him I was coming in between them and told him I was manipulative because I refused to pack up my 2-week-old baby and fly to come sit in her apartment in a different state. She tried to pull the whole, who's more important, her or your family bullshit. I told her she will not be meeting me. I've never met her, as my husband cannot stand her, and was only speaking to her because she's old and he's afraid she'll die and he'll regret not trying to make things work, or her grandchild, until she apologizes and can tell me why she's apologizing instead of I'm sorry you feel that way. I told her she can get off her lazy ass and flew down here, that we would pay for half her ticket, which is my opinion is fair, as she expected us to pay for 2 flights and a hotel room to come up there and sit in her apartment, and she can come. But her wanting to see him and our daughter does not trump over our daughter's safety. Sorry for the rant. I had a lot to say and nowhere to say it. If you took the time to read my ramblings, I appreciate it. 3. Second comment, NTA. Yes, the baby is both of yours, but you are the one who will have to push him out of your body, and you will be the one who will be in pain, maybe pain so bad you will be screaming your head off. So this is a decision you, and only you, get to make. As for epidural not being good for the baby, that is an oversimplification of the reality. This happens to be a field related to fields I've done research in addition to my personal experience. It's true that with epidural, the baby tends to be passive for the first few hours, and that diffuses the mother-child imprinting that happens immediately after birth. Some professionals also claim that with epidural, initiating breastfeeding is more difficult, and there is more of a chance that the mother will give up and switch to formula. However, if you don't have epidural, well, I chose natural birth for my first, and it was so painful and long that once it was over I refused to hold the baby and just fell asleep, so I missed the whole imprinting. My daughter also wanted natural birth, and her first delivery was so long, painful, and exhausting that the doctors decided they had to give her an epidural while she already had contractions, a very dangerous procedure, but they had no choice. So it's not a clear yes or no. You decide what you feel makes you more confident and less stressed, and do it. Third comment, Honestly, he shouldn't be allowed to even be present for the birth because he isn't respecting your rights to choose your medical treatment. If he's in the room, he will try to force you to not get an epidural. You only want a birth partner who will advocate for your wishes when you're in too much pain too. Pick your mom or a friend, trust me. The epidural is safe for the baby. In fact, it's probably the thing that saved me from a C-section because I stalled at 7 centimeters and couldn't relax enough to progress until I got the epidural. Some women do end up getting C-sections because of the epidural, but usually that's if it's on too strong. They can put less meds to where you can still feel everything, but you are able to tolerate the pain and intense pressure enough to not tense up. Epidurals are not harmful to the baby. They wouldn't offer them if they were harmful. The medicines are only harmful if given for multiple days in a row, not the one day, 2 tops you're in labor. Fourth comment, this idea that women should give birth without pain medication is relatively modern in human history. It's driven by the big shift in around the 1600s, where male physicians took women's health away from women. Driven by Christian belief that it's God's will for women to suffer through labor as punishment for Eve's sin, the notion was pushed that it is therefore unnatural, as in, against God's will for women to seek pain management. Prior to that nonsense, women have been figuring out the safest, most comfortable, and most pain-free methods of giving birth for thousands of years. The idea women should suffer in labor is rooted in Christian misogyny. It has nothing to do with what's best for women and babies, and it has nothing to do with nature. Every woman needs to make the best and most informed decision she can for herself and her baby. No one else has the right to dictate how she gives birth unless there's a serious enough medical situation for the doctors to take over, and that's between her and her doctors. Fifth comment, his mom probably told him all the wives' tales mumbo-jumbo malarkey about how drugs impact the baby and are selfish. I had 4. 1, 2, no drugs. 1 was quick like 4 hours. 2 took all day. The nurses were screaming at me for wasting their time by coming in at 4:30-ish p.m. with minimal dilation and contractions that kept going from steady to random and not accepting Pitocin or an epidural spinal at all. He wasn't in distress, they just didn't want me to have a baby at the end of their shift. 2 of them actually told me that I was adding extra work to their job for no reason by being there so soon. But I was a high-risk patient, and I would have been home alone 20 mins away with no ride or person to help. Their dad was a trucker and on his way from AR to lay to TX and didn't know if he'd even make it. I didn't even go in until I was having trouble walking and breathing when the contractions hit and after my water broke. Little monster just took until 11:35 p.m. to come out, and Dad came in 10 to 15 mins before arrival while I was pushing and cussing out the nurse who kept yelling at me for not taking meds. 3 was breech and had to be a C-section. I was severely over-medicated and started having chest pains and breathing problems on the table. Had a seizure episode. They never confirmed or tested to see what happened and couldn't move my arms for almost 4 hours after, so Daddy had to hold her and do her first feeding by bottle. I was slurring speech and didn't even have head control for myself. 4 was a VBAC and had to have 2 ECVs in order to avoid another traumatic C-section. New hospital, new doc. I had the spinal in place but back to no meds because I didn't want a repeat of 3. I do not think I'm a hero, warrior, brave, special for any of this. These are just my experiences and preferences. I've always had a high tolerance for pain and most medications, but I also have a lot of food-drug allergies, so I need to be super careful. And 3 made me feel like I wasn't actually going to survive that. When I tried to tell the anesthesiologist my chest hurt, my speech was garbled according to my fiancé standing there, and he thought I was saying it hurt, so he upped the dose. My vision blurred and everything around me sounded like I was underwater, and I felt like I was drowning. They said my heart rate dipped within mostly acceptable parameters, and that my boyfriend was not too far from acceptable range. This was the one time I wished I would have let my best friend who was an RN be there. I've just always been a very private person and didn't want anyone else in the room or at any of my kids' births except for their dad.